The Mirandus Dev Team just had a over 2 hour long live video with tons of awesome updates just earlier today. So in this video, I'm going to take that whole, I believe it was like 2 hours and 10 minutes, break it down to about 10 or 20 minutes, and give you guys some of the most important updates and a little bit of my thoughts on them. So first, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Mirandus is a new MMORPG in development. It's going to be a Web3 game where you can play and earn it. We have a play test coming up, permanent play test, where you can start playing, start earning in the game permanently. And there's a lot of development that's happening in the game, and that's what the dev team was talking about. Is really cool to get these updates. And then before we get too far, my name is Duyo, and if you're into Mirandus or play to earn games, go ahead and subscribe to my channel because that's what we're talking about here. And if you would like a Mirandus Discord channel where you can interact with others, talk to them during this upcoming playtest, or even get daily Mirandus tips, then join my Discord. There'll be a link in the description below. So let's dive on into this. And I know I've talked about this upcoming live chat that the dev team was going to have for a while now. And the biggest anticipation was the hard release date of when this playtest is going to happen. Well, I'll give you a little bit of spoiler alert. There was bad news and there was bad news. I'll give you some of the bad news now, but I'm going to save the other bad news for later. However, it hasn't been delayed yet, so don't be in despair quite yet. It's not the worst news yet, but it wasn't any good news on this. So I will start off by talking about the technical test because that's what I'm most interested in, is getting in the game and actually playing it. Well, before they wanted us to get in the game and play and start earning Materium, they did change that up a little bit. So this upcoming playtest, the first one, and it's just going to be a few days, and then they're going to reset it, fix the bugs, bring it back up, and then we can start earning Materium. But there's just a lot going on and a lot that they still need to fix and a lot that they want to make sure isn't broken before they implement the live earning mechanics in the game, and that kind of makes sense. So this tech test is called the field battle, and what they want to do is get hundreds of players in one small spot, get hundreds of deer, and have us all just shoot the deer and kill them, loot them, and make it as stressful on the server as possible, because you have hundreds of players in a small spot, hundreds of deers, and we're all shooting. So you got tons of arrows flying here and there, a lot of combat log and information going on at the same time, and that's just gonna stress the server to the max, hopefully not break it. And then they're gonna take the results of that, fix what is broken because something will be. And then once they get the in-game bug fixed, then they're going to release the playtest where we can start earning Materium, and that's when we can start playing and progressing, stuff like that. So I do just want to let you guys know about this. This isn't going to be like the last playtest. They said that we're going to end up geared up because their main focus on this one is just to make as much combat in one small spot with hundreds of players, hundreds of deer as possible. Not we're all out exploring, gathering, crafting, all of that. So that's not what this is about. This is just about worst case scenario in a live version of the game. What would it look like, and make sure that the game can actually handle that. Kind of makes sense. And then after that, they'll add on the Materium when we're playing, because there's going to be a lot of broken things. They're going to have to take the servers down, reset the servers, and they just want that to happen as little as possible. And it's almost guaranteed that the first day or two it is going to happen. And so before we go in there and start earning Materium and something really goes wrong, they just want to fix some of the major issues that may happen. Kind of makes sense. This is a little bit of a disappointment, but at least we still get to go in there and start playing soon. So none of that's changed. It's just when we start earning, it's going to be delayed by like a week or so. And that's the worst case scenario. It's not bad. And it will give you a chance to kind of play the game, get a feel for the game, how things work in the game, and stuff like that. I know me as a content creator who doesn't do live streaming too much, it'll give me a chance to get my live streaming like up on par before the big launch day, So it's okay. And then once the Materium is in the game and we can start earning that, that Materium is going to be permanent where you can keep it, you can pass it along. So even during these regular resets that are going to continue to happen, you will be able to keep the Materium that you earn, but you'll also be able to keep the ancient tier gear that you loot, items that you loot. So if you kill a boss, and there's going to be different tiers of items like common, uncommon, rare, legendary, and ancient. Maybe I'm missing one, but something like that, where ancient's the highest, and that is going to carry over reset after reset after reset, and then eventually to the live game. So if you want to collect some of these early ancient items, this is the way to do it too. And you will be able to carry those on into future resets to where eventually, like, you'll have a reset where you already have tons of really awesome gear already, and that'd be kind of cool. And it is nice that we can carry things into future resets and eventually into the live game other than just Materium. So when that live game does launch, the people who've been playing it for a year already has something to show for it, which I think is fair. Another thing that they talked about, and this isn't the order that they talked about, I kind of rearranged some of these things based off of how I wanted to rearrange it. But another big thing that they talked about was mastery and classes. And they're going to be a big deal. So I've said this before in my exemplar videos. Your exemplar, yes, gives you a unique bonus, but that's not the only determining factor to your playstyle. Masteries is going to be a big part of it, and your classes is going to be a big part of it. So just because you own one specific exemplar, how you play is going to determine your masteries, and then your masteries can determine your classes, and you're not going to be stuck with just that one single playstyle based off of your exemplar bonus. So don't think that if you buy an exemplar and you don't particularly like that later on, that you're stuck playing that playstyle. You can change your masteries by leveling up other things that you do in game, and eventually change your classes and overall change your different playstyles. So you're not stuck to just one. So how do you gain mastery levels? Well, you gain them by doing certain activities. So the more you use the sword, the higher your sword mastery. The more you use like a spear, bow, or use fire magic, the more those masteries are going to level. The more you chop trees, the higher your tree chopping mastery will be. And then classes are going to be locked behind requirements of masteries. You're going to have to get your masteries up to a certain level to be able to unlock different classes. So when you see somebody who's like a in-game class, like a pretty rare class, you know that his masteries are super up there. And then also based off of his class, you know kind of like what his masteries involve and the kind of combat that he does. So that's kind of cool. As far as combat goes, you gain mastery when the monster dies. So if you just attack something and then it runs away and it lives, or it attacks back and you end up running away, you don't gain mastery at that point. You only gain mastery when it dies. And in the cases of spells, you gain mastery anytime you cast a spell. So this way, healers who aren't killing things, they can still gain mastery because anytime you cast a spell, they are leveling their healing masteries. Anytime you cast a buff, you're leveling your buffing masteries, whatever the case may be. But if you are casting a spell that damages and then kills a monster, you will be gaining the mastery points from casting the spell and then the mastery points from killing the monster. So I see attacking spell casters being the first really high level masteries because they kind of get double points. But think of it, all spell casting costs Materium. So they're like literally spending real life money because you can convert Materium to money, and it's costing them to be able to cast these spells to kill these monsters. So it is kind of fair that they are leveling double than other people, other than like healers and buffers. They're still casting spells, but they're not leveling double. So it is what it is at this point. And of course, all of this is very early in the process of developing the game. It could change, but this is what it is for now. And they also said that weapons could be locked behind mastery requirements. So you might have to have a certain level of sword mastery before you can equip like the most uberous awesome sword ever. But they did say this isn't going to be the case for armor or rings. So you can pretty much wear whatever armor or rings you want. However, to equip the best weapons, you'll have to have the masteries that match it. All right, and then they talked a lot about dying, what happens when you die. They gave a lot of concept art about the cemeteries, about purgatory, which I'll get to in a minute. A lot of the concept art looks really cool. And the way that dying works kind of works, like there's multiple different ways that it can happen in game, but the way that they spelled it out for us, it kind of makes sense, and to me it seemed like a good system. When you die, you'll be losing mastery, so you need the mastery to equip certain weapons, to gain certain classes, and mastery is going to be like your player level, and when you die, you lose that, so it's going to hurt, and you'll end up in purgatory, and there'll be a gate to the real life world that exits out into a cemetery that you're bind to. So while you're in purgatory, you can make a choice. Do you res up for free and go into the cemetery, get back into the game, but lose all your mastery points? Not all, but a good chunk. Or do you pay Materium to not lose your mastery? But of course, we're all here to earn Materium, and then you got to pay Materium. So dying is going to cost you either way, but there is a way to pay Materium to not lose your mastery. And then they did say the higher level your mastery is, the more Materium it would cost you to not lose it. So let's say you're trying to level up your sword mastery to unlock the next class or equip a certain weapon, but you die while you're trying to level it. If you're level 5, it's going to cost you just a little bit of Materium, but if you're level 80 and you're trying to get to 81, it's going to cost you a lot more Materium because you're a lot higher level. Kind of makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And then also while you're in purgatory, your party members, like let's say you were out together and you're not the only one who died, you can see your other party members and nearby people and players meet you in purgatory. You can talk to them there. You can even exchange, you can even trade. So if you can be like, hey, here's some, like I'm rich, you're poor, I brought you on here, I'm sorry we both ended up dying. Here's some Materium so that you don't lose mastery on it. Or you're trying to power level someone and they die. Well, if they're losing mastery, all that effort you just spent is wasted, so maybe you pay a little Materium. They're a lower level than you anyways, so it probably won't cost them as much, but they don't have as much because they are lower level, so you fund it to them, trade it to them in purgatory so that they can res up without losing their mastery points. I think that's kind of cool. And then they did say that if you have a sword equipped and it requires a certain mastery, so let's say it requires 50 mastery and you just equipped it and it's so cool, you go out there and the first thing that you attack, it kills you. So that sucks. And then you res up for free and you lose that mastery and now you're down to like level 49 in sword mastery. Your sword would still stay equipped to you, but you wouldn't be able to use it. So you can die, lose mastery, and then lose your ability to use the weapons that are equipped to you. You wouldn't lose the sword, but you would lose the ability to equip it until you leveled it back up to 50, and then you equip it and use it again. And then we'll talk about looting. They did talk about a lot about looting, and I know my guild chat, Masters of Materium, the chat kind of blew up in their Discord channel about the looting system. Some people like it, some people don't like it. This is what the Dev Team came up with, so I'll let you know what it is, and you can voice your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think about the looting system, if you like it, or what it should be in your opinion. So the looting will be based solely off of damage contribution, and you'll have to hurt the monster a significant amount to be able to loot from it. So that means you can't have 5 guys whacking on this boss monster for an hour, finally kill it, and in the last second someone runs up there, pokes it with the level 1 weapon, hurts it for like 1, and runs away until it dies, and then he can loot. He didn't really damage it. Yes, he did attack it one time at the very end, but he didn't really damage it. He can't loot. So you have to damage it to a significant amount. They didn't say exactly how much that would be, if you have to do at least 10% of the damage, at least 5%. And of course, some boss raids with, you got tons and tons of people, all of the percent is going to be a whole lot smaller. So how's that going to work? They didn't get that specific. They just says the looting table or the looting system will be based off of damage contribution, and you would have to damage a significant amount. So when that happens, you go up to the monster, you loot it, and you'll see the loot screen of all of the different items that drop from the monster. And you can put that into your inventory, and it's going to load up for a second or two. And for that second or two, everybody who goes up there to loot the monster is going to see who's taking what items. So you can't just go up there and sneak things. People will know who's taking which items. And if I specifically say, hey, I need a new axe, and I see that Bob over there is taking the only axe that dropped, like, hey, Bob, that's not cool, so it will let you know kind of who is doing you dirty that way. But this does also mean that the people who are closest to the monster kind of gets first dibs because they'll be the first one who can pull it up and start looting. So the closer you are and the faster you are at looting, the more chance that you get what you want to get, which some people, and this is where it gets hairy because some people, like the archers and the mages in the back, they got to run up to the monster. So does that mean the last couple of seconds of the monster's life, they stop attacking and run up to the front? I don't know how that's going to work. I do know that if you're in a group, if you're in a guild, if you're with friends, you can kind of talk about it, before anybody takes anything. If you're the first one to pull it up, say, hey, this is what it dropped, who wants what. If you're in a random pickup group, it's probably going to be first come, first serve, and that's going to suck a little bit. And if you don't like it, you can find a different group. If maybe if one guy particular is aggravating everybody, just kick him from the party and don't include him, or just solo so that you don't have to deal with it. So it's not a perfect system, but there are ways to deal with it because if you're playing with your friends or in a guild, you can just have a civil conversation about who needs what. But if you're in a random group, I mean, there's not too much you can do about that other than make friends, like regular friends that you do play with that you can talk to. And if it gets to the point where you really are just not having a good time because somebody's taken all the good loot, kick them from the party or you leave the party, and that'd be the best way to fix that situation, in my opinion. Not everybody agrees with that, though. And then I wrote down here, it'll require trust and building relationships and ultimately building a reputation in game as someone who does or doesn't hold up their end of the deal. Because people will start knowing, hey, Bob over here is not fun to party with because he always jacks the loot that everybody asks for no purpose, for no reason, just because he's a troll. So everybody, like, he's going to build up a reputation of, hey, we don't like to party with Bob. No offense, Bob. If somebody's name is Bob watching this, nothing against you, just for example. But you're going to build up a reputation of someone who is cool to party with because of the loot drops or not cool to party with when it comes to loot drop. And when it comes to reputation, that leads me to the next point. So what if you don't damage the monster at all? So this would be people like bards who are buffing the party or healers who's healing the tanks and the DPS so that they don't die. Nobody's arguing that a healer shouldn't receive something, right? But they're not going to be able to loot these monsters. How that's going to work, Michael McCarty said, is that as a healer, you can be paid, like, paid for your services. You can be hanging around a tavern. A group needs to go out to raid a dungeon. They need a healer. Be like, hey, we'll pay you 50 Materium an hour. Hey, we'll pay you 300 Materium up front. Hey, we'll pay you 200 Materium now, 200 Materium when we get back. Hey, we're going out and we don't have money right now, but we know that this boss is going to drop a lot. So when we kill the boss, we'll pay you 200 Materium at that time. However it works, you can negotiate with healers. And this is going to take some willing and dealing with other people and negotiating prices. But the way it's going to work, it's going to require a little bit of a trust because somebody's got to do the work up front. Do you pay a healer up front? And then what if he sucks at healing? What if he takes the money and then just doesn't go with you to the party? Or he does go with you, but he can't keep nobody alive because he's the worst healer ever. Which, there are some of those out there. Or what if you don't pay up front? So you don't have the money, but you're going to kill the boss and pay the healer afterwards. and then you kill the boss, and then you just decide, hey, screw you, man, I got this Materium, see ya. Like, somebody is going to have to pay up front. Somebody will run the risk of, getting screwed over. And all of that's going to build your reputation in game too. Are you a healer who's good? Are you a healer who keeps up his end of the bargain? Are you a party leader, a raid leader who keeps up his end of the bargain? So all of this is building reputations with real life people in the game, and you're just going to be known for being good or bad for that. It definitely does give you a chance to screw people over, but you can only do that so many times before word gets out on it. And you may think that's unfair for healers, but it's also not that crazy of an idea because, like, for example, let's say you're a green cloak. You're not going to be out there earning Materium by killing the biggest, baddest bosses. You might be chopping down trees all day, and you're going to be selling the wood, the lumber that you make from chopping down trees for Materium. Well, you can sell goods and services. The lumber would be goods, and healing would be services. So as a healer, it would just be like you're a gatherer, but instead of being paid for your goods, you're being paid for your services. Services, in this case, being healing people. And then when you are in a party and there's loot drops, you can focus on a couple of different things. You can focus on what's good for you personally, what sells for the most, or just the largest stack of pure Materium. So maybe we're in a party and I just tell everybody, hey, I need a new axe right now. Hey, I'm looking for some heavy boots. So if any of those drop, I would really like it. Or you could be like, I'm looking for ingredients for alchemy. I'm trying to build up my potion crafting level masteries, and I'm looking for alchemy ingredients. So if any of those drop, I don't care about anything else. I'm just looking for those. Please let me have them. Or you could be like, you guys can have the items. I'm just here for the Materium, and so everybody knows what you're looking for, and then they can kind of pick around that and leave that for you. If this is a civil conversation with people that you trust, like your guildmates, you should be able to have that. Like, any heavy armor goes here, any leather boots go here, and then any items that nobody cares about is just first is first come first serve, whatever. And then a couple more things about loot. There will also be options like if you are soloing and you're the only contributor, it's not going to take as long. You can just click a take all item and nothing will be loading up. Just you're the only one who attacked this thing. You're the only one who gets the loot. You take all the items instantly, or you can just do a ignore loot and just toggle on like you don't care about the loot drops and it automatically gets released to the public. Because the way it's going to work, the contributors, the people who damage the monster, they're gonna get, their pick of whatever items drop. And then if they leave that for a certain amount of time, then anybody else in the public who just walks along and sees this dead thing on the floor for the last couple of minutes, then they can pick up the loot because it's been so long that obviously anybody who attacked it is no longer interested in whatever's left over. So it's open to the public at that point, and then a couple of minutes after that, it would just disappear into the world, so that we can keep the map clean, right? Monsters always disappear after. And then they actually talked a lot about the different things that they are doing to develop the game. Some of the dev team leaders were talking about what they've been working on and what their team's been working on. So some of those things is the zone designs. They showed us some new zones and they look pretty awesome. The water in the game and how the water works and the lighting around the water and lighting in general. They've been working a lot on the lighting and getting that just right. They showed us torches and using torches at night and seeing the fuel burn down on torches. They worked a little bit more on the voice tech because we won't be talking and we won't be chatting. We won't be typing words out in game. There's now like world chat, trade chat. It'll all be voice chat here. You'll be talking to the other players, and it's only the people around you, obviously. So I do have a whole video on the voice chat and my thoughts on it, and so you can definitely check that video out. But they're still working on that. And then asset bundles to make things more efficient going forward. That'll just speed up the whole process of developing future things. as they develop the game. Land deeds will repel monsters, and the higher the deed level, the stronger the repel will be. So if you own a homestead, the smallest land deed, it'll repel monsters. They naturally won't be hanging around you. But if you're attacked in the wild and you run to your homestead, the monsters will definitely be wanting to chase you in there. However, the larger the town, the larger the city, the less likely a monster is going to want to chase you into town. So the higher chance you'll be safe in the town. And then in citadels, you'll be 100% completely safe no matter what. And then they talked about building owners will be required to go to your building to collect fees. You won't be able to just own a building and not even ever log into the game, or be in a completely different zone 24/7 and just earn passive income. You will have to go to your building to actually collect the fee. Kind of only makes sense. And then they talked about several different damage types, such as slashing damage, fire damage, and etc. So there would be different damage types, and there would be different defenses to these damage types. So I think the example they gave was if you had a flame sword and you attack like a fire monster, the monster would be hurt from the slashing damage of the sword. However, he could be completely immune to the fire damage that came from the sword. So where, like, let's say a typical monster would receive 25 slashing damage, 25 fire damage, the fire immune monster will only receive the 25 slashing damage, and that's it, for example. So there'll be different damage types and different defense types, and that just makes the game a lot more interesting. Of course, the more damage types. If you play something like Path of Exile, there's so many different damage types, and there's so many different ways to mitigate different damage types, and that's a large portion of the game right there. Is how do you stack different damage types? How do you survive against different damage types attacking you? So the fact that Mirandus is going to have that, that's really cool because a lot of games like a lot of mmorpgs, you just have straight damage, or you have just physical damage, magic damage. So you have like two different types at most, and then that's it. So the fact that there's going to be so many different types, that always just makes combat that much more interesting, and combat styles just that much more diversified. At the beginning of the video, I said there was two pieces of bad news. And the first one was that during this first playtest, we won't be able to earn Materium quite yet. That's going to be off put by like a week while we try to break this tech test in the beginning during that field of battle. So to me, that was bad news because I want to earn Materium as soon as possible. But the second piece of bad news is it's not really bad news. It's just literally no news. So I expected during this live update that they would be giving an announcement. Like, actually, I expected a hard date, hopefully, for when the upcoming tech test would take place, because their goal was the end of Q1, which is quarter one of the year, which would mean the end of March. It's right now, about the end of February. So that means that we should be in the playtest in about a month from now. And if you have a major live stream that's over 2 hours with all this information a month before we're supposed to get in the game, you would think that they might mention that. And they didn't. So that's not bad news. It's not saying, it's not bad news. It's not horrible news. It's not saying that it was delayed, but it's not good news. And it does lead me to think that they might be slightly behind schedule, because if they weren't, they would give us a hard date, or at least confirm that, hey, yeah, this should still be coming out at the end of quarter one. We said that was our goal. We're still on par for that. They didn't say that, which leads me to believe here in a week or two, we'll probably get the bad news of a delay. They didn't say that yet, but I just feel it's coming. So there's that. I was hoping for a hard day. I know a lot of people have been waiting for that. It's not there yet. So right now we can still expect the end of quarter one, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking they're just setting us up to announce a delay further along, when it gets closer to time. But who knows? And then again, during the next playtest, the whole purpose of that playtest is to cram hundreds of people in one small spot, attacking hundreds of deer with hundreds of arrows flying everywhere, and just make the whole battle scene, the field of battle is what they're calling it, as chaotic as possible, to try to stress the servers as much as possible for like a worst case scenario, what might be happening in the game to make the servers stress out. And if it can handle that, it can handle most of what we're going to do in the game so that they can feature it live and we can start earning Materium afterwards. But yeah, overall, they gave us a lot of really cool information during this. I personally enjoyed watching it. I always like seeing the new developments that's coming. So if you want to watch the whole 2 hour plus video, I'll have a link to that in the description below. So check the whole video out if you would like. Or if you want to learn more about what the dev team is doing that's pretty crazy in game, you can check out this video and then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to continue posting new Mirandus updates, new Mirandus information as we get it. I'm going to be posting more like the best soloers out there, how to do this, how to do that. And when we get into these tech tests, I'll definitely be live streaming. I'll definitely be posting more videos on that. So that's a reason to subscribe right there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.